So, of course, no one circles OTAs on their calendar compared to the draft or free agency, training camp, or, of course, week one. But I got to tell you, there's always a sneaky excitement that comes up late May and early June, because after 4 long months without Patriots football, here we are. Players on the field, coaches running drills, press conferences, new guys from free agency. The rookies are fitting in. We have a first-team offense. We got a second-team defense. The new coaches, are there scheme changes? Mac Jones, wondering about this year 2 leap we've been talking about forever. Is his arm a little bit stronger? How's Bill Belichick working with the offense? What about these new weapons? Defensively, Malcolm Butler, welcome back. How does he look? Can he still run? All of these questions we think we're going to get answers to. And you know what we've learned through 2 OTA practices? I don't know. I've written up almost 3,000 words on the 2 practices that media have been allowed to access in Foxborough. And the thing that we always say every year, at least on our end, is keep everything in context. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't put a whole lot of stock into it. And I'm going to write up everything I see, because there's a thirst for it, and knowledge and information is good. But I know, as much as I give that caveat of just this isn't meaningful, because even in the last practice, offensive and defense didn't go against each other. Not per second, not 1-on-1s, not 7-on-7s, not 11-on-11s. In that practice and any other, there are no pads. There's no contact. Not even all the players are here. Not Judon has missed both practices. Isaiah Wynn too. Adrian Phillips sat out the first one. You're going to do it anyway, because we have been starved without football for 4 months. And to be honest, I want to dive into these too and give you some serious takeaways, as opposed to what are going to be some very soft OTA observations. So instead of telling you, take it with a grain of salt or don't put a whole lot of stock into this, I'm just going to put this in an analogy and then get to what you want to hear. Imagine first 2 things. Whatever company you work for has unlimited PTO. Second, that company, every June, things are died down a little bit calmer, has a getaway. It's okay. It's a little bit fun. It's good to see everyone within the company, especially coming off the pandemic. You review all the basics, what the structure is like of your team, the company philosophy, a bunch of boring lectures. You do all your HR trainings, okay, how to avoid phishing scams, bad emails, sexual harassment, all this different stuff. So when June rolls around and you want to take vacation, technically you can because of unlimited PTO, but 80 to 90% of the company is always going to go to this retreat. Do you actually take it and kind of look like a dick because that's the whole trap of unlimited PTO? Or do you go because it's still a getaway and it's not that bad and you're going to go over basics that maybe, hey, if your contract is coming up, everyone notices you're not there, it could become a bigger deal. Or maybe you just really want to get better because it's your first or second year at that company, even though you really don't need to know how to avoid fake emails that are asking for your social when they get passed around the office. That's all OTAs are, okay? Like Matt Judon doesn't need to know how to run the edge, okay? Or work on his hand placement. Isaiah Wynn, could go either way. But for most of these players, they don't need OTAs. So what I would say to you is, if someone was walking in or asking how your company was for that getaway, that week, and what it's actually like, whether you're in sales or whatever you're doing, that's not really representative of what the rest of the year is going to be like, right? Not everyone's there. You're going over basic stuff that every other company within your industry is doing. The Patriots are doing the same thing. These are drills everyone else is doing with their guard down. So if you really want to know what your workplace is looking like, obviously you're going to wait until things are operating with everyone on board, everyone available, and doing what they're going to be doing in much more specialized fashion, when you don't have the option to just go, I'd really like to go to Europe because it's June and I don't need any of this crap. This is what OTAs are. That being said, I'm going to give you what you want. And after that, we're going to have a long talk with Fitzy, with one of my favorite offseason exercises. It's a good look to kind of look at the roster of any team. I did this when I used to cover Penn State. I call it a scrimmage draft, a scrimmage snake draft. So where you and a buddy are sitting down, you've got the Patriots roster listed between you, and you're trying to pick your own teams, one pick after another. Fitzy went first at the first pick. Then I got 2. We went 2 from there on out. And you're building your own teams as if they're going to scrimmage against each other. You got 28 players. I posted on Twitter. You'll see the list and you'll listen to us. Who had the better team at the end? You can decide. But it's interesting to think about because it's not just a list of the best players. If you're building out your team, you need to know where the drop-off is. I mentioned Judon. Not a lot of edge guys that scare you after him. Josh Uche, we're still kind of waiting for that breakout, but are you going to count on that if you're building your own team? So he and I go back and forth, get a lot of good insight and some conversation about some rookies, as well as some veterans with some things I've heard. Okay, no further delay, no more cliches, no more analogies. Takeaway number 1 from OTAs, practice and a half to be seen. Bill Belichick is working a lot with the offense. I don't know how long this is going to last. I think really what's probably happening is they're easing Matt Patricia and Joe Judge into their new roles, kind of weaning them onto running the offense, because takeaway number two, the theory that Joe Judge and Matt Patricia are going to take over for Josh McDaniels is really gaining some steam. And this has been thrown out now for weeks. But the idea that Joe Judge could be their passing game coordinator and Matt Patricia, their run game coordinator, a setup you see a lot in college, it is really true. Because in the time that they spend apart, you'll see Matt Patricia often with the offensive line and the running backs, and Joe Judge coaching up as he has some of the skill position players, non-running backs, wideouts, and tight ends, along with the quarterbacks. So their respective positions are going to be, for Joe Judge, quarterbacks coach, Matt Patricia, offensive line. But I think really, because Nick Caley's still with the tight ends, that's going to be the setup as far as we've seen. We don't know if it'll be true, but a lot of time with Bill Belichick for the offense and the way they've divided their labor so far. Joe Judge is spending a lot of time with the passing game and not so much with the running game, where pretty much Matt Patricia has been exclusively. Third, this is something I heard about a month ago, and it makes a lot of sense, not based so much on what we've seen, but as far as you think about that transition from Josh McDaniels, who has expanded this offense from Charlie Weiss and different iterations, and then it goes to Bill O'Brien and Josh McDaniels takes it back. I think things are going to be simpler for the Patriots this offseason. And I didn't raise it a month ago because, again, reporting comes from, you hear something from one source, you want to confirm it independently with another person. But it's simpler in the idea that the Patriots are known for their option routes more than any other offense in the league. And I think at some point there's kind of a mental burden that forces you to slow down physically, which is why you don't see receivers really thrive here in year one. I think that's going to be to their benefit here, where they're going to have pure concepts that they rely on, get good at what they're good at, as opposed to being okay at everything and trying to trot out whatever's going to be best against that defense in a particular week. They might be a little bit more predictable, but the trade-off is we're going to be better at the things you might know are coming. And that way you can't stop it anyway, which is how some offenses operate anyway. Now, does that mean they're going to this Shanahan running style offense that a lot of people have talked about watching at OTAs? Again, we want to just seize onto these just, not grains of truth, but these huge takeaways. No, the Patriots are very well aware what they're exposing the media to in practice. It's why the last practice was 65 minutes and almost a quarter of that was just sprints. Like we saw nothing of significance, but that could be an example. We talk about the passing game going from pure option routes, where the running game is more outside zone. They've run outside zone before. It was one day. Wait until we get to training camp for any other proclamations about that. But I think the offense is going to be a little bit simpler this year. 4, I mentioned no Judon or Wynn. Isaiah Wynn's a little bit more interesting. Contract year. He's someone that's been floated in some trade rumors. Wouldn't put a lot of stock into that either. But it's something to keep an eye on because Matt Judon is expected to take on a little bit more of a leadership role. And all the old heads, James White, Devin McCourty, David Andrews, of course, Matthew Slater, they're here. He's not. Number 5, Malcolm Butler looks like Malcolm Butler. And that's not my takeaway. That's out of the words and mouths of Bill Belichick and Jonathan Jones. And we'll see again when the pads come on. But as far as a guy who took a year off, is 32, he can still run, and he's still fighting for the ball when it's up in the air. Long way to go. But he and Terrence Mitchell were leading the corners the first practice we saw, which tells you at least the coaching staff believes in them as much as they do Jalen Mills. So last one, Mac Jones. The surest thing you can say about him right now, and I think this even goes back to his last press conference of the 2021 season, he knows this is his team now, and he's excited for that. There are a couple clips that have gone around about him working with Nelson Aguilar or even Devontae Parker about how he wants to run their route specifically, again, when they're throwing 1-on-0 in OTAs. Those are the kind of things that, no comparison here, but Brady used to do when he was here because he had ownership. He knew this was his team, his offense to be run exactly how he wants it. Mac Jones has been much more vocal this time around, as he should. There's no longer any quarterback competition with Cam Newton. It's his offense. It's his show. And he's being very specific about how he wants it run. And look, you're going to hear good things about a second-year quarterback pretty much anywhere in the NFL. He's working hard. He should be a captain, all this. Mac Jones has been living that, walking the walk, as it were, as much as you can walk and not really run here in May and June. But good signs for the Patriots. And I think that's why he's excited. I think they're excited about him, that if he can take over and paper over a lot of the holes that we see on offense, when we just look at the depth chart, that's where they might elevate and go above expectation. But again, might, could, we'll see. No pads, no contact. It's just OTAs. So again, hold on to those if you want. 6 OTA observations for you. And now a long conversation with Fitzy, who's great. You've heard him on EEI, seen him on NBC Sports Boston, at Fitzy GFY on Twitter. He's going to be back. This was a great time. And think about how you would draft your own team. Mac Jones, he's going to be automatic QB as we declared. Everything else after that is up for grabs. And this is how we had our 2022 Patriots scrimmage draft. The People's Fan Fitzy, aka Nick Stevens, aka Fitzy from EEI, NBC Sports Boston. I mean, you're all over the place. I feel like if I went through all of those iterations and places you've been, we would lose half the pod. First of all, I am pumped to have you here. This is an idea that I have not waited to get to since I started the pod. But I'll let you roll on first. Where can the people find you? And thank you for coming on.
Dude, it's my absolute pleasure. I love being the mirror image of you as we both salute and pay tribute to our favorite brewery, Vitamin C on the South Shore, Weymouth Strong. Of course, I'm originally from Braintree. We like to call Braintree Weymouth with dreams. Yeah. The people can find me, WEEI, Fitzy and Hart on Saturdays, the newly launched Six Rings and Football Things podcast, and of course, across all of your socials, the TikTok, Facebook, InstaFace, etc., at Fitzy GFY. I'm psyched to be a guest on your podcast. I'm hoping to give you a performance, that has all the energy in all three phases. Nobody works harder on the pod than Fitzy does. And also kudos to you for the daunting challenge of, in the vast sea of too many football podcasts, let alone now the growing wave of Patriots podcasts, actually coming up with a clever Patriots podcast title.
Thank you. I got to tell you, that took all of going to Wikipedia and searching football terms, which really, after 4 years on the beat and covering football since 2015, including college, I should have had off the top of my head. But I was stunned to find out Pat's interference was still out there, with one exception. There was some guy who stopped in 2019 covering Alabama, who was dealing with that same Nick Saban energy from Belichick. It was Pat 'S interference. So Pat's interference talking football. Thank God he gave up, and thank God for that apostrophe. Otherwise, we're not here, and we're not going to have our scrimmage draft. So I mentioned this in the intro. I'll reiterate it now. It works like this. Bill Belichick has gifted Fitzy and I a chance to run one practice in training camp in July. That practice is a scrimmage. He's on one sideline, I'm on the other. We are now picking teams like we're playing in the backyard. And we're playing in the backyard just as like you would have done back in the day when you had one friend who could really throw a forward pass. So he's automatic quarterback. Our friend in this case is Mac Jones. So Mac Jones is off the board. But from here on out, we are going to make 28 picks, 11 players to start on offense, 11 on defense, and then 6 backups wherever we want them. Fitzy will go first. I'll make the next 2 picks in kind of a snake draft format. Then Fitzy gets 2, I get 2, and we go all the way till we get 28. When I texted you about this the other day, you seemed pumped about the idea. Were there any lingering thoughts you had after that when we stopped texting, and then we had 48 hours until we're starting here now?
The one sigh of relief I have is that we both get the AQB, automatic quarterback, and Mac Jones, because I would have fought you tooth and nail, hammer and tong for it. And not just because I'm a Mac Jones stan, that, I sell merchandise on my website with Mac Jones's name on it, but I am too. Yeah. And they call me the Foxborough fanboy. I'm a complete Patriots apologist and live my life as obtusely Belichickian as the organization themselves. But I just want to put it on the record. I take tons of guff for it at the radio station, on my socials, on the pod with Andy Hart, the notoriously grumpy little stubby son of a gun that he is. It's okay. He's not listening anyway. I'm in for Mac Jones big season 2. I am all about year 2 Mac Jones. I know people like previous guest Christian Fourier have said they could see regression because nobody likes this WeWork, groupthink, hive mind, offensive alignment and coaching stratum that they have going on with Patricia and Judge, and what is Nick Caley doing. To me, it says, we trust you, Mac Jones. You are so much further along than any other second-year quarterback we would possibly trust the franchise and or give the keys to the brand new Cadillac that is this Patriots 3.0 under Bill Belichick, that I'm here for it. I know Peter Schrager was mocked right off the NFL Network when he said Mac Jones was his dark horse candidate for MVP this season. Wow. I want to let you know I am here for it. It is officially Mac Jones SZN, as the kids like to say. Mac Jones season.
Well done. Nailed the landing there. And good. So that's all our Mac Jones talk. Because as I mentioned, we're not going to pick him. We got to keep this rolling. Yep. And wow, MVP. I'm going to stick with that though. I'm going to bring that up in about 20 minutes and just say Peter Schrager. And when I do that, you'll know I'm going back to this moment, just shaking my head over that MVP.
Here for it.
But hey, that's what June is for. Am I right? All the hope in the world, all 32 teams. Yes, even Jacksonville. And we're moving on. All right. So you have the first pick. We are filling out the roster. Things to keep in mind. This is not a list of the best players for the folks at home, okay? We're taking into account positional scarcity, positional value. Like Matt Judon is probably the best player on the board. He's playing outside linebacker. But if you really like Ronnie Perkins or Josh Uche, maybe you don't take him. There are drop-offs at certain positions and others that are a little bit deeper. So with all that in mind, the number 1 overall pick, the Fitzy Patriots select?
I know what my heart wants to do, but sometimes the mind has to step in and take over for the heart as it wanders and does dastardly things. Even though there's a risk that he might actually get traded, there's also a chance he could lead the AFC in touchdowns, as he finished second last year with 14 on the ground. And though the Patriots drafted 2 running backs who could potentially supplant or replace him next season, Pierre Strong, love you. Kevin Harris, looks like you are the clone that grew right beside his bed. And Ramondre Stevenson is going to have a major impact. But give me Damian Harris, running back out of the University of Alabama. Roll Pats with the first overall pick in the Pats interference draft.
That is a stunner, because I got to tell you, I organized my players into tiers. Damian Harris, with all due respect to your scouting department, the way you put together your own big board, was in tier 3 for me.
Ooh,
and
wow.
this came down to a couple things, one of which I'll hit on quickly, and I'm probably going to say throughout the summer.
You organized tiers and I produced them, so that's fine.
Yeah, there you go. So I just think Ramondre Stevenson towards the end of last year showed a little bit of a kind of a wiggle. Like, he was always very light in his feet. We saw that in training camp. A kind of ability to break tackles we haven't seen from Damian Harris, who's a very good running back, a little bit more straight line, and yes, he's going to run over you. But the injury history there scares me a little bit. And I think there's a chance we see Ramondre Stevenson lead the team in rushing. But that, of course, includes an injury for Damian Harris, who right now, with your number 1 overall pick, I think there's no question the best football is ahead of him. And I think we have a physical identity established with the Fitzy Patriots that I'm going to have to match. And I mentioned him off the top. With a 2nd overall pick, I'm taking Matt Judon as my outside linebacker as I put him down here. This comes down to, I think he's the best player on the team. Am I worried he's not at OTAs right now? A little bit. And
I'm not at all.
Not at all.
Not in the least bit. He deserves it after getting COVID, being the assistant general manager in the offseason, trying to recruit everyone literally under the sun, including the 2 of us, to come play for the Patriots this past offseason. And no, he ran himself into the ground by trying to do too much last year. He tried to hit, if you will, the football equivalent of a 7-run grand slam every time he rushed the passer. Then you factor in the COVID, the exhaustion, and the way that the team played in December in the playoffs. Like, if anyone has deserved an extra Mai Tai and feet up in the sun until it really counts, it's Matt Judon. I love the pick.
Thank you. And yes, I think as far as the offseason goes, my only thing is if there's 85% attendance, and a lot of this circles back to, we just got our butts kicked in the best offensive performance in NFL history in Buffalo in that wildcard game, not to bring this up within the first 10 minutes of us recording. I would think he'd want to be there to kind of rectify things when overall the talent has gone down. Now, that doesn't mean he hasn't been to all the OTAs, just the 2 the reporters have seen, and we'll definitely see him for minicamp on June 7th. But for a leader, a guy who established himself, Adrian Phillips came back for that second one. Devin McCourty's been around. But moving to the offensive side, another position that I think there's a drop off from the top guy, and it'll depend on the backup here. Hunter Henry, tight end out of Arkansas, my 3rd overall pick. And I know this is a blow to you. Hunter Henry did exactly as he was expected last year. I think he's going to control the middle of the field. He's a guy Mac Jones clearly trusts. They're next door neighbors. And he's in the prime of his career, too. This is a guy I think can be a foundational piece for my offense.
Yeah, Bill Belichick loved him. He followed him to the Chargers. He followed him way back in high school when he played for the name of the coach that I forget, who never punted
Kevin
in high
Kelly,
school.
yep.
Kevin Kelly, thank you. Right, always, if anything, default to alliteration. He had a rock solid season last year. The thing is, we have come to define the tight end position by 2 people who wore the same number. Gronk, the greatest tight end to ever lace him up for the Patriots or in the National Football League. And then, of course, Ben Coates as well. So just because you don't put up Coatsian or Gronk-like numbers doesn't mean you haven't had a badass or highly effective season. You pointed out that he and Mac are besties and their families hang out all the time. And to me, he is the well-made turkey club at the diner you go to when you got a hangover on Saturday. He's chicken parm on Friday night, like rock steady Freddie. You love it. You know exactly what you're getting. And if the Patriots get out into space, if they change the offense, if they run a little more zone stretch and it resembles less of the power gap and more Shanahanian, if you will, this year, there's going to be a lot of field, I think, available for potentially Jonnu Smith should he actually catch passes this year, as opposed to bump them into the hands of the other team, and Hunter Henry as well. So you have a very dependable team right out of the gate on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, we're rock solid. Your hangover meal go-to real quick. Is it the Turkey Club? Mine would be the very juicy, greasy cheeseburger I can find. Friendly's if I can get.
Oh my God. Friendly's patty melt could be the unsung goat of all franchisee restaurant food. You could also give me a burger at the 99 as well. My hangover recipe go-to, it's a ice cold can of Coke and an everything bagel with cream cheese, tomato, lettuce, and bacon.
Wow. Dark room, no kids too?
Yeah. Right. As if I've got an emotional migraine as well. Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. You have the fifth picks here. Time to rebound. Who are you putting around Damian Harris?
I'm going to give him my pick for breakout New England Patriots second year, 2022. Some people say he was born to play. Some people sing he was born this way. He goes by Born Paulie. Give me the electricity of the playmaker that is my current favorite member of the New England Patriots, the man who cracked the enigma code that is Bill Belichick's smile, Kendrick Bourne. I want the Patriots throwing to this guy more frequently, more often, all over the field. Who made the most electrifying touchdown catches on the Patriots last year? On the sideline, over the middle of the field, against Cleveland, the bomb that he caught between double coverage to help bring the Patriots back to get a lead that they should have held on to against Dallas. And he still caught 2 touchdowns, albeit very meaningless touchdowns against Buffalo. He's got a high third down conversion rate. He's got a great red zone rate, and he's a playmaker. You've seen him and Matt getting together in Florida this offseason, trying to continue to work the chemistry and rapport. And I just love watching him play as well. Like this is a glue guy I want on my team who I'm expecting bigger things from in 22.
Yeah, it's a great pick. I remember writing in free agency last year that his underlying numbers from San Francisco, kind of the separation, a lot of the GPS tracking data was much better than the outputs he had, which was like, 500-600 yards a year. And he proved that in year 1. And I'm with you that I think year 2 could be better. The other flip side about that, about cracking Bill Belichick, we in the media, and I think rightfully so, made a big deal about Matt Judon's presence in the locker room, what he's added, this kind of joking attitude, the boombox, all this different stuff. The offensive version of Matt Judon in the locker room, adding what was really kind of a needed spice, if you will, was Kendrick Bourne. That's a guy who people gravitated towards. Of course, you can find him at any time, wherever he is on Instagram or any sort of social media. That's who that dude is all the time. And I'll say this now here, we're recording on June 1st. I've heard a couple of things where Kendrick Bourne might be a captain next year. And that should tell you everything when they bring back Matthew Slater, Devin McCourty, and James White in free agency, that guy might be able to crack the inner leadership circle. So great pick. Who's you got Damian Harris and Kendrick Bourne. Who's your next pick?
This is the most ridiculous pick that I will make in this draft, but I'm not going to apologize for it because I'm a ridiculous human being, football analyst, and caricature of your cousin from Boston whenever I decide to turn on the townie. I can't let you have him, which is why I need to select the Patriots MVP of the past 2 seasons, the unsung MVP of the National Football League, the man who scores the most points consistently for the Patriots. You may know him as the place kicker wearing number 6, but he's number 1 in the program and in your hearts. I refer to him as the legend of Big Kick Nick. Nick Folk, welcome to Team Fitzy.
Big Kick Nick. That's
Big Kick Nick. Yes.
Different player.
Dude, I love that. I'm sorry. There's just something about, I think it was when he nailed the 50-yarder to beat the Jets in that, at the time, semi-meaningful, but ultimately meaningless Monday Night Football game a couple of years ago during the pandemic 2020. And I just thought, like, this guy's nails. And I love, you know what I'm a sucker for? I am a sucker for a second act. I know Fitzgerald said, there are no second acts in the American life. But like, we're all about, in Boston, we love a great redemption or turnaround story. Like Nick Folk, basically just about out of football. Belichick brings him in to take over for Gostkowski. We're watching Al Horford, who was a throw-in in a dump contract, first-round pick trade with Oklahoma City, become the emotional core and paternal leader of the Celtics in the NBA Finals. And he's great. I mean, like, the guy would have a route. They would have renamed Route 1 for him if his 56-yarder against Tampa, his time was just about to expire in the rain last October, went through to beat Brady. So I love him. I share a name with him, and now he's on my team.
All right. Well, you got your finger on the pulse of Patriots Nation, as they say. Also, Malcolm Butler fits exactly what we're talking about. This kind of prodigal Patriot. Yep. I've written about it tons of different times, probably too many. Jamie Collins fits in there. To a lesser degree, obviously, you can't beat the storyline.
Patrick Chung, Kyle Van Noy. There's a highway full of them.
Yeah, great story. Okay, so that leaves me to Quinn Nordin. The only kicker really left. I'm not going to spend my next pick on Quinn Nordin. Do really quickly, sticking with kind of the high floor here. Devin McCourty, give me the quarterback in the secondary. He's going to change the coverages. I think he's got a unique skill set in that if you need someone to play single high the whole game and unlock your whole playbook, this is the guy. So Devin McCourty, my third overall pick. Now I'm going to cross swords here.
He's just like, that's like, it's just a solid pick. Like you just walked into someplace and you saw that they just like tapped a keg of Lagunitas and you're like, I don't know if anything else here is fresh, but I know I can depend on, like it's Sam Adams in a bottle. It's like, I know this is going to be, I know what I'm getting here. It's been around a long time, veteran presence. He's back for one more year. The one question I have, as you previously mentioned, the potential captainship, if you will, for Kendrick Bourne in 22, like DMAC, Matthew Slater, and James White, how much impact do you think they're going to have on the field versus like, I need to give a little bit more of that championship DNA and previous Patriot leadership? Like this is like, show these guys one more time how we do it here before you guys go gently into that good football night.
Yeah, I wrote about this when, New England is collectively freaking out for that first week of free agency. Everyone's going, so Terrence Mitchell, huh? Like what the hell is going on? Come on,
do something. Belichick, what are you doing? Come on.
Right.
What happened to last year? I like that.
Yeah, you're turning 70. You lost your touch. You lost your mind. And I talked to a couple people within the team and around the league who said largely this was kind of expected. And the words I heard was, we're not panicking about how things are going on. And part of that was they trust that all the players they brought in last year, we said a couple of them already, Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne, Matt Judon, the way their contracts were structured, they knew they were going to be big pieces in 2022, not only on the field, in the locker room, but on their cap sheet. So there's not a whole lot of room there, but they trust their infrastructure to get a little bit more out of those guys in year two, as well as Mac Jones, by re-signing all those captains. So I think this is really going to be, and this is a discussion for another pod, I think, the 2022 season as a test of their system. And that is proven through the players like Devin McCourty and Matthew Slater, as much as Belichick's ability to develop certain players and squeeze more out of his defense just schematically than a lot of other people, because they're riding with their guys and did in free agency. And that was point one. For better or worse, they trust these guys. And you might not like them in terms of, star impact players improving the roster talent, but they were all low-risk contracts for the team, short-term contracts for the team, and guys, you kind of know what you're going to get. So there's a high floor nature to this, but also we're going to bring the band back together and we're going to elevate it just because of that fact that these guys are here right at the front playing the tunes every single hit that you and I know.
Right. And half of the guys they signed last year during the uncharacteristically aggressive free agency spending spree, where they spent the budget of like a Transformers or Fast and Furious movie to bring in all these guys, half of them didn't even contribute that much. So if you get decent seasons out of Jonnu Smith or Nelson Aguilar, and you get what you got last year from Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne and Godshow and et cetera, the Patriots still have a chance to be competitively relevant, which is all I can continue to ask for, seeing as I've seen them go to 9 Super Bowls and win 6 this century as well. And yeah, to me, this is a Belichick, putting his blank on the table type of season. And for all of the national analysts like the Colin Cowherds who say that they're trying to win it this year in a Popovichian style, which is culture will override talent. If there's any one guy you're going to trust who can establish with the veterans he has and a proven system that's already got him in the Hall of Fame well before he retires, I'm going to go Bill Belichick.
I love it because you know what? This is now back-to-back episodes. We are getting full-on positivity and optimism, which I mentioned in June. This is what the season is for in the NFL. We're going to get a hard dose of reality in week 1 down in Miami, a sweaty 100-degree dose of reality, which could be a great reality. But until then, I think every fan's going to be a little bit nervous. So for anyone who wants to group me in with this idea of negative Boston media, man, listen, my guy Fitzy is preaching to you the positivity, and Chad Finn, who I had on last week, laid out all reasons for optimism. Another reason for optimism, and I'm toggling between 2 players here with my next pick, and then we'll recap quickly to see who we have. I'm going to go with the receiver because I think I have a high floor team right now. I want a higher ceiling. Devontae Parker. If this guy stays healthy, he is the X receiver that the Patriots have hoped since 2019 that N'Keal Harry would be. No need to say any more words about N'Keal Harry, but that leaves me with Mac Jones throwing to Devontae Parker and Hunter Henry, with Matt Judon and Devin McCourty on defense. And you have Damian Harris, Kendrick Bourne, and Nick Folk.
All right. And to that squad, that powerhouse triumvirate, we're going to get freaky. Here comes the Fitzy 5. With my 4th overall pick, do we only get 1 running back, or are we allowed 2?
No, that was the beauty of the backups. If you want to have full-on powerhouse, you take Ramondre Stevenson from me. I got to tell you, my backfield's going to be hurting. So if you're going with that.
Then as David Andrews shouted in that clip that went viral mid-season, Mondre, That's right. Ramondre Stevenson, someone who I had never heard of before. The Patriots took him in 2021, coming out of Oklahoma, 4th-round draft pick. Some believe that he could eventually succeed James White as more of the third down back because the Patriots have such a great legacy of third down backs, and that's an area of need I think they've had for a while because James White is kind of getting up there in terms. Well, I mean, the guy had a catastrophic hip injury last year, couldn't even walk the first 3 months. And you look at that long line of effective guys from J.R. Redmond all the way through Kevin Falk, Danny Woodhead, professional golfer, Shane Vereen, James White. They need someone else there. Maybe it's Mondre, or maybe he also takes over as the lead back as well. And it's that kind of game plan attack versatility that I love out of him. Got really soft hands. And boy, after he got blowed the blank up in the first game of the year, putting the ball on the ground and then just getting run over by Landon Roberts against Miami in the 2021 kickoff game. Pass protection got better, moves got better, ball security got better. Love to have him on the squad.
I'll tell you this quick note of Ramondre Stevenson, then we got to roll through a couple picks. He was working with the pass catchers in the last OTA practice that we saw, which, as I said in the open, take it with not just a grain of salt, but a whole freaking ton of it. Him and Damian Harris were trusted as pass catchers in a way that you saw all the other running backs not. And to me, that also indicates you're going to be on the field in pass catching situations, but in those situations, you might also be pass protecting. So this is a guy that I think is making that ascension, usually seen in year 2, but you really saw it towards the end of last season, which is the last step for full trust from the coaching staff. Can you hold on to the ball and can you hold up and blitz pickup?
All right. Can't let you dominate the pass rush this year. And I know we got to move it along. I'm going to go high ceiling on this one. Everyone is raving about him. We've all been waiting for the breakout. Uche, Josh Uche. Let's do this, man. I got a lot of family that went to Michigan, go blue as well. So I need to up the Wolverine quotient on my team. If he put on just a little bit of extra something to make his body type Judon adjacent, we've seen that he can power rush. We've seen that he's quick. He's got good moves, and he's drawing raves from the people that we believe to be some of the better defensive minds in the NFL. This is it. I know it's supposed to be year 2. Give me the year 3 breakout for Josh Uche.
Awesome. That's what I had in high school. So I'm riding with Josh Uche. I had a year 3 breakout.
Same.
Junior year. Transcripts aren't so great. Okay, colleges are starting to take a look. You got to push through. We stayed home. We went to UConn. Things worked out. All right. So I was afraid here that you were going to go as soon as you mentioned him, David Andrews. I'm taking the captain right there in the middle. Mac Jones is going to be having trouble with some interior pressure. So welcome to the squad. And this is another, I'm going back and forth. I'm going to go Christian Barmore. Up front with Matt Judon. I think barring that Andrew Callahan year 3 leap from Josh Uche, I might have just nabbed the top 2 pass rushers on this team.
You may have gotten the emerging stud on the Patriots defense and the anchor of their efforts to prevent the other team from scoring the football, because the same way that image of Steph Diggs watching Kansas City celebrating the AFC Championship 2 years ago lingered. Barmore, I loved. He just stood there in the field and watched Buffalo dance on the proverbial Patriots grave. And then a member of the Bills offensive line came up and talked to him afterwards. And he was such a steal, and he's such a powerhouse, and he holds up well against the run and just blows pockets up left and right. I think this guy might be an absolute animal this season. That's a huge grab. That might be the best grab so far.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. So we'll reset after your next 2 picks, but who do you got here? This is going to be your 5th and 6th, 6th and 7th picks.
Tough call. I think this guy is going to be available a little bit later on. So give me Kyle Duggar, safety. Third year, was doing great last year until the hand injury, came out against Buffalo with the club, may as well have not even played. He was useless at that point. Solid tackler. You love that fundamental tackler. We're hoping to see more of that Rodney Harrison level style of play come out of him this year. And there's a chance for him to grasp the leadership role in the secondary alongside Adrian Phillips. And then on the offensive side, no risk it, no biscuit, kid. High risk, high reward. Literally need the highest ceiling for Trent Brown, the man who blocks 2 things, players and the sun. I just want him. Just if he can stay on the field, like the numbers back this pick up too, Andrew.
Yes, they do.
Because when he's on the field, the Patriots run game improves by almost 2 yards per carry. That's an insane statistic. And like when you just look at him, you just think like this is a person moving device. That's what he does. He loves playing there. If I can get over 13 games out of him this season, monster year, totally worth the contract.
It's like when you hear NBA reporters cite the on-off numbers of like the Celtics are plus 10 per 100 possessions with Jason Tatum on the floor,
right,
and minus 12. Like that is the Trent Brown to their run game on the
their run game is Daniel Tice on the floor against Miami. Like just exactly. Without him, like just total garbage kid.
All right. Well, sticking with the offensive line. Actually, let me ask you this. Trent Brown, we've seen him start at left tackle in OTAs against just OTAs.
Yep.
Are you keeping him on the blind side? Are you keeping him a right tackle? Where are you putting him? You also don't have to answer because this would also tip me off.
100%. I will gladly answer that.
Okay.
I will answer that question. I didn't order the code red, but I will tell you that I do want Trent Brown on the left side. His performance, he was healthy for all 16 games, all 17 weeks, and then the playoffs in 2018 when the Patriots had that awesome transition to a power running game. Mac Jones's blind side may be the most important thing to protect on the entirety of the Patriots offense. And at this point, like, I don't know if Isaiah Wynn, there's your most troubling absence from OTAs right there. Yep. I feel like you could find some way to go with a combination of like Justin Herron, the occasional Kajust, and maybe Stuber. If this kid proves to be a really good 7th round snag over at right tackle. But if Trent Brown is healthy, I want him on the left side of the line because that's what you got to protect, especially with the way the Patriots offense and the way it might move could be transforming this season.
Sticking with the big boys, Mike Onwenu, come on down.
Boom.
Second heaviest player on the team. I got to protect Mac up the middle. No one's doing that better than Big Mike. And then we're going to go to defense. I think he's the best corner on the team, but you don't think of him because he's so often in the slot. Jonathan Jones.
Yeah.
And he gives me a little bit of flexibility at safety. I don't want to see him back there a whole lot. But, you know, they've talked a little bit about positionless football. We don't have enough time to get into that. But I think there's enough there where, again, you start in the middle of the field and build out. And that's what I got here with Jonathan Jones.
All right, I'm going to need to pick a tight end at some point, but one of us is going to be looking at like the last kid picked at the kickball game whenever it's Jonnu Smith time. And I have my eye on him, but it's still not time yet. You talked about positionless football. When we're talking positionless football, I want Jabril Peppers, who I think could be the best offseason signing by the Patriots. The sky could be the limit for him if he is fully recovered from the ACL, can return punts, almost has modern NFL 2022 linebacker size. High quality safety. Again, Michigan guy. I remember Rich Eisen going off saying Belichick, if he got healthy, Jabril Peppers got the steal of the free agency season. And the fact that he revealed in his first media avail to you guys that Belichick told him, we're going to use you a lot and we're going to be playing 3 safeties or more on the field pretty much all season long, told me Jabril Peppers is going to have a lot of opportunities to make plays for this defense.
Quick question, and then I'm going to get to my pick because I think you had – oh, no, you still have another one. Is there a close second for best free agent signing if it's not Jabril Peppers? Nope. Okay, great. No,
no, sir, there is not.
Yeah. All right. Your next pick.
Okay. I don't really have anything on the defensive line right now. I'm just going to go with good old Lawrence guy.
No, I like it.
I mean, he just,
he's the Lagunitas pick. We need to go back and revise the beer selection for Devin McCourty. Like, maybe. I don't want to say fat tire, but at least that's like, oh, okay. We'll step up in the locker.
You know what Devin McCourty is? Devin McCourty's a can of Narragansett. Never let you down. Never let you down. It's my golf beer of choice. Yeah. Because it's just, it tastes like beer.
I just want it to be a little bit more expensive. We'll come back to that.
Okay. All right. You know what? A Jack's Abbey House Lager. There you go.
I'm sure he's delighted to hear all this.
And Lawrence, I know, but well, listen, I'm trying to help you get some beer sponsors. Yeah. Lawrence guy, he's your Lagunitas, but like, he's just like, he's never really out of position. I think he's got like a penalty to his name in the several years he's been on the defensive line. To me, he's the David Andrews of the defensive line.
Yeah, and you look at
team leader.
He's up there in run stops, which, you know, some of the way they tally and record those things, like I have discrepancies when I'm doing my own charting after every game. But the bottom line is he's a guy you can put across the line, sometimes at end, sometimes in the middle. Like he's going to be a first and second down player, but you need those right now when you just have Josh.
And my locker room is going to be great because he's well liked. He's into nerdcore. He's a huge Star Wars and Mandalorian fan. Yeah. Couldn't be nicer. Actually gives you the time of day in interviews as well. So at least, you know, my locker room isn't going to be just a bunch of grumbles and cliches after every game.
Yeah, you are way ahead in that department. Let me tell you, between Kendrick Bourne, Trent Brown, sneaky, awesome locker room guy in interview, Lawrence guy, you know, Josh Uche is still playing things by the book, but I think between, you know, Guy Peppers, we'll bring him out. You mentioned playing with the 3 safeties. Adrian Phillips was the reason for this last year, playing in the box. Come on down. And then I'm going to go back to offense here. Give me Jacoby Myers, Mr. Reliable. He's another, I can't say Lagunitas because we've said that a bunch. I mean, he just might be a Bud Light. I don't know. Like, he doesn't have the national profile of a Bud Light, but just solid, like, okay.
Right. He's been great. Throws a beautiful deep ball if they give him a chance to run a few more of those option passes every now and again. I'm curious to see, though, if the 25 pounds of muscle that he put on in the offseason, because he was noticeably much more bulky or bulkier, you should say, in those videos that emerged out of Florida with Mac and JJ Taylor and Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker getting some practice time in a couple of weeks back. Is that going to add to his game, or is that going to hinder his game? Like, is he telling us, like, I'm going to probably take a beating with a couple of hospital balls and third down catches, hoping to convert for first down? Because he's not great on the sidelines. We saw that terrible drop against Indy last year. That's not where he does his best work. The middle of the field is where he patrols, but don't confuse him with the Amendola, Edelman, Wes Welkerian type of third down, speedy, shifty ankle breaker guys.
Yeah, I think the added muscle would be something, and this is not backed by anything scientific, but seeing these guys in the locker room and some of the players you just talked about, like Edelman was sneaky ripped and built, especially down below. And I think that's where you need the weight, where you're getting guys coming in low at your knees because they can't hit you up high and you're ducking down on third down. Like, he did need to build that up to take those hits on third down and keep popping up. And to his credit, somehow this guy was Gumby early in his career because he didn't really miss any games. But I think he's not a long speed kind of player anyway. If he maintains that quickness and adds some extra muscle, all the better to him. So quick recap, and then you got 2 picks. We both have Mac Jones. I'm coming down the list. 2 receivers, Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers with Hunter Henry, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu up front. Defensively, Matt Judon and Christian Barmore on the line. I don't have any linebacker. Neither of us have any linebackers. Still, Josh Uche, Judon can count. In the secondary, John Jones, Devin McCourty, and Adrian Phillips for Team Fitzy. Mac Jones with Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Kendrick Bourne, up front, Trent Brown. Defensively, Josh Uche, Lawrence Guy, Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, and your man, Nick Folk.
That's right. And joining the core on the upside gang, if you will, it's technically his first year. It was an injury-laden red shirt type of year, not one like Ronnie Perkins where, like, was he really injured? I'd say that was sort of Trey Flowers is the classic case of, like, were you really injured, or did you kind of get redshirted? But he had the Foxborough flu in 2015 after he just completely destroyed Aaron Rodgers in the preseason. We got excited for him. He sits down. He's a monster in 2016. Cameron McGrone, you are proudly sporting the colors of Team Fitzy. This kid has come in. He looks the part. He is going to be asked to be the Keanu Neal, the early Miles Jack, like the speedy coverage linebacker, hoping to make Buffalo punt, let alone make plays in the defense. Would have been a second or a third round pick in 2021 had he not torn the ACL. Spoiler alert, he did. He becomes a value play. And I think he's the guy that, while everyone was saying, come on, Belichick, what are you doing, Matt Groh? Get some linebackers. Did you not watch the end of the Indy game of Buffalo? They trust this kid. And the fact that he said, the time for me is now, and I have no fear. Oh, boom sauce. Let's go.
They are running a PR campaign in a very Patriot standard, definition.
And I am a sucker for it.
But before this kid, and they don't do that for anyone, especially someone who has not played a single NFL snap. Like, you go back to Matt Groh voluntarily bringing him up among the linebackers, and I said throughout the whole offseason, they like this group better than anyone on the outside does. And that was the reason they didn't take anyone. And Cameron McGrone is the biggest reason behind that. They were excited last November. It's shocking to me how vocal they've been about their support. And look, if he's earned it, that's great. I just can't verify it. And that's what we're supposed to do here as reporters, is, of course, get the real information, not just pass this on. But as much as we can say, Steve Belichick, Matt Groh, Bill Belichick have gone on about the kid, it's been more than we've heard about anyone, at least since I've been covering the team. And I would say, probably since Belichick started, because, again, the kid has not played a single snap. And I think right now you'd have to pencil him in. I mean, he's the first linebacker off the board. Let's put it that way.
Yep. Yeah. He is. Yeah. And the other guys are edge defenders, but they're going to be relying on this kid a lot. And I think it's a lot of institutional football knowledge, and just not the fact that, like, he's got physical capabilities and is healthy. And joining him on the team, I guess I need a cornerback at some point. I'm going to go Malcolm Butler.
All right.
And it's not just because, like I said, I'm a sucker for a comeback story, a feel-good reunion. One thing, Butler was a good corner in 2015. I wasn't sure he necessarily merited like all pro or the kind of like lavish praise that was heaped upon him. 2016, I remember back in the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl, he got cooked a little bit. In 2017, he was in his own head because he's worried about the contract, has a bad postseason, and then the stories that linger about the game that shall not be named. But one thing he's in tremendous shape. This is his comeback. This is his effort to be able to get a final contract, redeem his storyline. And one of the things he does as the Patriots probably transition to this sort of like fluid, safety-filled, nickel-dime hybrid defense, he's a great tackler. He's got good hands and he's a great tackler. And I think if and once he makes the team, he'll be a solid veteran presence there at the cornerback position, which won't be the strength of the Patriots this season.
Right. All right. Looking at the board now, and I'll ask you who among these players sticks out. I'm going to make 2 picks, and then you'll go 2 picks. We'll skip.
We can rapid fire if we need to. That's all.
Yeah. We'll go rapid fire for this. Top players left on the board: Jalen Mills at corner, Nelson Aguilar at receiver, offensive tackles Isaiah Wynn, maybe Justin Herron's in there if you don't trust Wynn's health. Cole Strange is still there. Devon Godchow, Mac Wilson, Dietrich Wise, James White, Johnny Smith, Terrence Mitchell. If you can't tell, that is my tier 3 that I was just reading off. Mm-hmm. So. Who of all those players sticks out most to you? Who's most interesting looking ahead to this season?
Cole Strange by far. Cole Strange is going to have the biggest spotlight and the Hubble telescope pointed at him for the New England Patriots fan and media as well. I mean, you're a guard. They took you in the first round. If someone said the Patriots are going to take an offensive lineman in the first round, I would have said I was here for and fully support the Solder drafting behind Matt Light plan. It wasn't that. It was we created a need dealing away Shaq Mason for a couple of spare range balls and saving $5 million, getting a 5th round pick. If this kid if they do change the run game and they do try to stretch it outside and get their line and their receivers and their backs moving in space, if this kid is as strong and as mean and vicious and powerful as they say he is, he's going to be a welcome addition to the team. If he draws anything resembling Logan Mankin's comparisons during the season, and that's high praise right there, because that was one bad mother blanker on the football field. And the Patriots need this kid to kick ass this year, point blank.
You know who else needs him to kick ass?
Who?
The Callahan Patriots.
Son of a.
I wish I could say that was a setup the entire time, but the more you went on, I'm just going, you know who's behind him is Drew Desjardins, CFL famous, and I just can't go into this season with Drew Desjardins. All due respect to fellow Andrew. So I have my interior locked up. Cole Strange, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu. We'll see what the tackles bring. Obviously, edge pressure is going to be a big deal. And then with my next pick, as we start rapid fire, Jalen Mills on defense.
He wasn't there for OTAs, but he better get his ass there to collect his 5th-year option that was picked up if he thinks he's going to get a valid 2nd-year contract or stick around with the New England Patriots. Let's see the small hands and shorter arms that some said made him more guard appropriate in the NFL. I was a believer from day one. He's a positive force on social media, and he was a sneaky good run blocker last year. The pass protection could still use a little work. Isaiah Wynn, let's hope that's all you do this season. You are on Foxborough, Fitzy.
Win with win. Left guard.
Sure. Okay. I guess I'll have to. We'll put him on the line. Wherever.
I'll tell you, they someone I talked to, and I didn't verify this with someone else, but said they kicked that around this offseason when they were sniffing around some big time offensive tackles, is that they would move him inside, not due to health, just in terms of best fit. So I don't think that's, as much as he's played tackle virtually his entire NFL career, that's so crazy. But I promise rapid fire. So let's keep that going.
Okay, we'll keep it going. The next pick, I'll go Mac Wilson.
Damn it. Great pick.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, maybe a couple of picks, solid just speed over the middle. As Gerard Mayo, as Troy Brown, as anyone with a coaching position that's sort of fluid and still to be defined would tell any of us in the offseason, Andrew, they want to get more explosive. They want to get faster on the 2nd and the 3rd level because they knew they got exposed big time last season. Mac Wilson adds to that. Another Alabama guy in Foxborough. Go figure. All
right. For me, I'm going Devon Godchow in the middle. We are staying in the middle, but we are getting very slow. And then I will take, let's stick in the trenches, Justin Herron.
Good pick. Good pick. Might actually be one of those like, hey, you were, you could be like the Cam Fleming, like 2017 Cam Fleming, sneaky good, got him a nice deal down in Dallas as well. If we can get that kind of season out of Justin Herron this season, that's a dub.
Yep. All right, who you got?
All right. Next, give me Adrian Phillips.
Oh, he's off the board.
Oh, you took him earlier? I didn't know how I missed that. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
And I was here the entire time. All right. I got to have a tight end. All right, Jonnu. That's it. That's all you get. You know, let me put it this way. You know what you did last season, Jonnu Smith. You know what you did. Don't you dare. He missed OTAs last year because it was the pandemic. He had a newborn. This year he's here for it. 31.5 million guaranteed over those first 2 seasons. Hasn't really validated much and or any of it. He may not be the greatest football player, but as many have said, if he can just start playing and stop looking like he's running while he's thinking, he'll make some, if not maybe a couple of key contributions this season.
He can't get worse. And that's just not me putting him as far down as you could be. It's just looking at his career statistics page and just saying, this was the worst season of his career. And you take out that rookie year, which we all should, like he will bounce back. This is just going to be positive regression. And it's clear, most obvious.
That's what the sign says above the Jonnu Smith Cafe. Like, hey, the food can't get any worse.
Yeah. Next to the big letter D from like whatever inspection agency does that for food and safety.
All right. And I think on the defensive line, I'll take Henry Anderson.
Okay. Sneaky good pick.
Yeah,
missed all last year. I had
a guy missed it last year with the torn pec. Like solid player. No one's going to say like, oh, this was a Henry Anderson game. Like the offensive coordinator is going to be up all night planning for Henry Anderson. No, like just get in the way of people trying to advance the football. And if you can do that and stay healthy, you're a quality addition to Foxborough Fitzy.
Yeah. I will take Terrence Mitchell as a third corner. Journeyman. See how it goes.
That's it. Fair enough.
Yep. And then this is tough. This again, this is where the tough picks just don't matter. You're pretty set at inside linebacker, so I'm going to wait on Raekwon McMillan, who
they love.
Maybe I take ahead of Juwan Bentley, which is kind of all the disrespect Juwan Bentley needs. But we all saw him on third down last year. Give me Nelson Aguilar. Let's just spread this out. Air it out.
Let's just live a little.
Let's just go.
Let's live a little. Let's go ahead and walk into the oily rag factory with a lit cigarette. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Where am I a little deficient right now?
Well, let me reset here.
Okay.
Both teams, starting with mine. Mac Jones. I don't have a running back still. My receivers are Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar. Hunter Henry at tight end, the offensive line from left to right. Do I sound like Gil Santos? Justin Herron, Cole Strange, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu. Blank. Defensively, Matt Judon on the one edge, Christian Barmore, Devon Gotcha on the middle, empty edge on the other side, no inside linebackers, secondary at corner, Jalen Mills, Terrence Mitchell, Jonathan Jones, safeties, Devin McCourty, and Adrian Phillips, no kicker or punter.
Okay.
You are Mac Jones, running backs are Damian Harris from Andre Stevenson, Kendrick Bourne at receiver, Johnny Smith at tight end, Trent Brown, Isaiah Wynn up front. Defensively, Josh Uche on one edge, Lawrence Guy and Henry Anderson on the line. Inside linebackers roaming everywhere, Cameron McGrone and Mac Wilson. Malcolm Butler at corner, Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers at safety with the kicker Nick Folk.
All right, my next pick. Everybody raved about him. The fact that he's so fluid, he's quick, he was fielding punts. I know he had some issues early on in his collegiate career, but he could be one of the sneaky steals of the 2022 Patriots draft, or at least they're going to need him to, because this position is highly deficient. And the best I got is Malcolm Butler. I'll take Jack Jones, cornerback out of Arizona State, rookie on the New England Patriots and Foxborough Fitzy. All
right, next pick.
And your next pick, I'm going to go, you know what? Give me Tyquan Thornton.
Oh, yeah. They need that speed. Your second receiver.
I feel that need. I feel the need. I don't know I honestly don't know what we're going to get of him this year. I don't know if this guy is going to turn out to be Ted Ginn Jr. part 2, or if he's going to be more Bethel Johnson. But, sometimes you got to, aim high if you want to fly.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go 2 safe picks. James White, welcome to the running backs room. Make yourself.
You got one now, finally.
I know. And then Dietrich Wise, just a movable piece, a little bit of pass rush.
I love that guy. He's such a dude too.
He's gotten better in his run defense. He's still not a standout, but he's going to get he's a classic hurries and pressures versus sacks guy. And it's not overwhelming. I think they overpaid for him a year ago. Another locker room presence, sneaky future candidate to be a captain. I wouldn't peg him this year or next, but he'll be around here for a while.
All right. Let's continue to fortify the trench beef where the wars of Sunday gridiron action are won. I know I need another guard. This guy might be chipping in left guard, right guard, and possibly even as a backup center as well. Give me the 2022 version of Ted Karras, Big James Ferentz.
Oh, all right. Steady James Ferentz. That dude has bounced
steady Jim
from hit. Where do you want him, by the way? Because you have Brown at left tackle. I think we talked Isaiah Wynn at left guard. You, of course, can fix this whoever you want at the end. Wynn at left tackle, Brown at the right. But obviously, James is going in somewhere in the interior.
I'll put Ferentz at center.
Center. Okay. I think that's smart. He's right now is their backup center as far as we've seen really the last few years. So that works. Okay. Second pick.
I need a right tackle as well. I'm going to gamble that one of my guys will be available. I'm going to go upside again. I want Marcus Jones.
I love that.
Offensive and defensive weapon, as I'm labeling him, out of the University of Houston. This kid, when I heard that he literally could, like the same way at a Waffle House, you can get him plain, covered, smothered, however you want him. Like the fact that this kid was able to score a touchdown as a punt returner, a kickoff returner, a wide receiver, and a defensive back at a D1 school, like that's what I'm talking about. Again, more speed, more playmaking ability. And I listened to Phil Perry's podcast recently where one of his old coaches said, absolutely, this kid could turn into a good cornerback, but a much better receiver. Maybe that's the plan. Who knows? But I'm here for it. Popcorn is ready to see what this kid can do.
The best compliment I think you can give a guy, particularly third round player, rookie, is he's just a baller. And that's something I kept hearing about Marcus Jones, checking in on him after, people at Houston, couple scouts around the league. Like the kid can just play. And I think, honestly, if you're going to maximize him, and it's worth sinking into him, right? Like we don't need to talk more about James Ferentz, but it is that fact that you need him to impact kick return and punt return and maybe play a little bit of offense, because I wrote about him earlier this week. Only 2 corners in the last 10 years of NFL play who were 5'8" or shorter. He's 5'8". Have had multiple pass breakups in a season. One of them is Miles Bryant, but you could argue whose failings, undrafted guy, made the team. Congrats to him. More NFL snaps I've ever taken. His failings, though, against Buffalo are the reason maybe Marcus Jones is here. So
1,000%.
They're counting on him to be an outlier there, but he can still provide value in the areas that I just mentioned, where I think it makes sense to pull him on a jet sweep or fake the jet sweep, have him go in the slot. Like he doesn't need to master the route tree. Give him a couple things like you had even Isaiah Zuber doing, a couple years ago, which hopefully is better than Isaiah Zuber. But it's unfortunate the league has kind of depressed the value of kick return, something I asked Belichick about before the last OTA practice with Marcus Jones in mind. But it's just keep it simple when you watch the tape. The kid's highlights are everywhere. He can play. Just don't count on him to be a lockdown corner. Round out his value in the other parts of the game.
If I were him, I would send an Amazon gift card to Isaiah McKenzie for stealing Miles Bryant's lunch and then eating it in front of him in that December Buffalo game as well. Miles Bryant probably better suited to just be, and again, really nice guy, and had a couple of signature plays in 2020 and in 2021 against Buffalo in the previous windy matchup up in Orchard Park. As far as Marcus Jones goes, like 2 sneaky stats. I already got Jack Jones. Now I got Marcus Jones. So I got the 3rd and 4th round, smaller size corners. Jack Jones, highest rated cornerback last year in the Pac-12 in terms of coverage numbers. And the highest coverage numbers, according to Pro Football Focus's college numbers over the past 2 seasons, the highest rated cornerback, Marcus Jones.
There you go. This segment brought to you by PFF and VSP. Yeah. All right. So we each have 8 picks left. We are now firmly in the 20s, 21st and 22nd pick here coming for me. I'm not going to overthink this. Juwan Bailey is still on the board. Look, we can complain about
Chalk.
him. I did, before we went. But just as you said, Chalk, I need an inside linebacker. He's going to started every game last year, 1st and 2nd down. Then we'll drop someone else in the box. So he goes for me in the 21st round. I look at the rest of the roster. It's a little tough. Like, again, James White is my only running back. I'll grab one a little bit later. I don't think you'll go with the 3rd one, though. As I announce that, opens the door for you to really screw me in terms of hitting the ball up, because I also don't have Marcus Jones to give the ball to. But I think I'm just going to finish up, with that offensive line and go Yadni Kajus at right tackle. Because it's nothing.
You burned me there. Good job. You burned me there.
And it's, he could flip flop with Justin Herron, and it's not really great. Like I might even put, Mike Onwenu there at right tackle and then say, hey, Andrew Stuber, Jason Hines come in at right guard. But I got the O-line set. I got an inside linebacker. Next time I'm probably going running back. So do with you will with that information. But I think that's just, at this point, you gotta fill your holes.
If I could perfect world the Patriots offensive line, given the talent that they have right now, I would go Trent Brown, Cole Strange, David Andrews. Then I might put up a battle for right guard between Ferentz, maybe even in rookie Chasen Hines, who I think actually might be one of those sneaky, like, wow, they got another Mike on Wenyu type. And then I would put on Wenyu over at right tackle, because even though I know he didn't play in college, he was really, really good there in 2020. I don't know why they felt the need to shoehorn him back in to left guard where he didn't play well, ultimately leading to Ted Karras ascending in the Houston game and beyond and locking up the line for the better part of the season.
Yeah.
That would be my perfect line.
Now you got me thinking. I'm going to make a decision there. I might go back whole line now that I said that solidified, but you got your next two picks here. I'm going to guess before you make your picks. O-line might be an area you go to too, though I just filled that up. You got your safeties, maybe another edge guy to go opposite Josh Uche.
Okay, I'm going to go edge guy and line guy with these next two picks. I'm looking for the Trey Flowers breakout season from Oklahoma's Ronnie Perkins with your next pick. They had to have taken him in the third round for a reason. Again, we saw nothing. And look, I may be a sucker for a template and saying that Trey Flowers was impressive, went away, disappeared, came back, a smarter, faster, stronger, better Patriots player. I don't know if Ronnie Perkins has the same measurables, if he has the same football instincts that the very demure, if you will, the very softly spoken Trey Flowers does. But I need somebody out there, and I don't know who else it's going to possibly be. I'm going to take a flyer on him. That one could blow up in my face, or it could just be a bit of a wasted pick, but we are in the 20s. And as you know, when you live in your 20s, there's a lot of wasted time. I'm also going to go with Chasen Hines to play right guard for me as well. If this kid's strong enough to be on the LSU offensive line, traditionally a strength of the team, play center and guard, Patriots have a ton of guys. Like, is David Andrews like sweating this out a little bit? Like, is he going to work harder than he ever has before? Because there seem to be an awful lot of guys, Cole Strange, James Ferentz, Chasen Hines, and David Andrews, that can play the center position. I know he and Mac are also besties and hang out at Hunter Henry's house, but what is this? What kind of message do you think is being sent to him?
Well, you forgot one name too, and this is Cody Russi, undrafted free agent out of Houston, who you could say, oh, undrafted free agent. First of all, David Andrews was an undrafted free agent coming on.
Patriots are rife with UDFAs. They make them. They succeed all the time up that way.
Bring on all of the UDFAs. Not only just an undrafted free agent, David Andrews, but in 2015 when they were coming off that Super Bowl winner with the Seahawks, where they had Brian Stork there, who obviously has since disappeared. But Cody Russi got the highest number of guaranteed dollars on his contract out of all the undrafted free agents. That doesn't always mean anything, but it is a sure indicator of where they see him relative to the other guys they signed and who might have a shot. So I don't think he'll unseat anybody, but you're right. There you got a lot of center options there in case David Andrews gets a little nicked up and he had off-season shoulder surgery. But Chasen Hines, yeah, I kind of like it. The other guy that I have a soft spot for, and I found this out after the draft, Andrew Stuber, who I think, yeah, you just made two picks. Screw it. He's my next pick. This kid I covered in high school, and I didn't know it.
You're scorching me 2 rounds in a row. I thought you may address the running back position or take some other skill spots, and I could, like, I was trying to get Stuber late. Like that was me trying to get Stuber, letting him slide by you. That was me trying to sneak the receiver that just re-signed with the Jets through on waivers and having the Jets snag him. Slot receiver.
Braxton Berrios.
Yeah. Like I just tried to basically put Braxton Berrios on the practice squad, and you took Stuber from me.
Well, here's the thing about Stuber. Second team All-American, right tackle, started there for 2 seasons in Michigan, also played some guard. Todd McShay during the draft was just, I've got a good feeling about this kid. I talked to Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl recently about Marcus Jones, a couple of other rookies.
Yep.
He said the same thing, where it's like, he's not as athletic as you would want to be, at right tackle to kind of bend on the edge and keep those speed guys away. You know what he is, though? 6'7", 300 pounds. And he's played in major college football against Ohio State, obviously, every single year, has arguably the best defensive line coach and prospects coming in and year out outside of the SEC, though maybe even in that SEC. So Andrew Stuber, at least this what does for me. He can have a 3-way competition with Yadni Kajust and Michael Weno at right tackle. Loser gets right guard.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. So I'm done with the O-line. Second pick, I am going to get another running back, another rookie, Pierre Strong. Come on down, pick number 24. So I have 4 selections left, and we'll reset. We'll just reset at the end. At this point, we're so late in there.
I love Pierre Strong. That was one of the guys from the Who are you again? Quick, let me go Google your comp reel and YouTube your highlights. I absolutely love this guy's style. I think Andy Hart and Chris Scheim, who I do the Six Rings pod with, both said he reminds them of Darren McFadden. And I know Darren McFadden was made of the recycled chandelier glass that JD Drew was made out of. But like, if that kid can stay on the field, he's got legit, like, I think he had the most touchdown runs of over 50 yards, or either last season or over the last 2 seasons. And again, there's that deficit of, will there possibly be a succession plan at third down back? He doesn't have Stone hands. He doesn't have Dan Graham's hands, but he also doesn't have Shane Vereen's hands.
Yeah, Pierre Strong is interesting. Speed guy, 4th round, fits the same profile as James White.
Sub 4.4, yep.
Yeah, going on the scouting thing, though, isn't this like the Hinge Tinder version of scouting? Let me just swipe through all of your highlights and kind of decide in that moment, post pick. Like, sometimes that's all you need, though. I mean, what else are people doing these days? You know, again, in terms of the not overthinking it.
Back in 2011, don't forget the Patriots drafted it was either second, third. It was like they went Ridley, Vereen, right? And what are they doing with these 2 guys? And turns out Ridley the next year became the feature back, and then Vereen became the pass catching back. I think the other running back, Kevin Harris, could potentially be more the Damian Harris type. So you go Harris to Harris, makes it easy for the Patriots coaches, especially Belichick, who's getting up there. And Pierre Strong could maybe be a bigger, faster version of Vereen and carry on that tradition, the emphasis I've put, which several times in the pod, about the third down back. All right, I need it. For God's sake, somebody has to play right tackle. I think I'm probably going to have to realign my O-line. So I'll probably have to go. I think I'm going to have to go with Isaiah Wynn back at left tackle, Trent Brown at right tackle. I'm going to go Ferentz at center, Chasen Hines at right guard, and at left guard, I'll take Cody Russi. You talked him up. I got to get him most guaranteed money to all the UDFAs right out there. So Cody Russi, come on down. How do you like the view at Foxborough Fitzy?
The UDFAs feels like I have not started Obi-Wan Kenobi yet, but when I do, that will be the next planet in the kind of species that populate that planet, like home of the UDFAs in Star Wars.
Exactly. And I need another receiver because I only have 2 wide receivers. I don't know exactly who's left though at this point on the who do we? You can't make me pick N'Keal Harry. Don't do that.
There's an early sleeper based on 1.5 practices of OTAs that we've watched. And I checked in at him just with someone today and said, hey, is this guy having a good camp like we've seen? No big response. The old like on the text. I take that as confirmation. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but I'll tell you he's not N'Keal Harry, who's not been at OTAs.
All right, fine. I guess I'm going to have to go with Christian Wilkerson.
Oh, I'm thinking of Trey Nixon.
I got Trey Nixon. All right, now you said it. I'm going to undo the. It was like like you can unsend a Gmail within 10 seconds. So I'm going to take the final selection made by Ernie Adams before he retired as a significant contributor, if you will, special Belichick assistant. Trey Nixon, 7th rounder, 2021, out of Central Florida, I believe.
Yep, he's speed, fell in the draft because of injury. You know, again, not going to wow you, but his routes are sharp. And again, there are no pads, no contact, no anything. He's just kind of, if you like Christian Wilkerson enough, like you just did, right? You're making that pick and you're.
Oh, that was a desperation pick. That was.
Yeah. I think Trey Nixon could offer more than Christian Wilkerson has in any season to date next year. And that's a complete guess. But in terms of you got the year 2 leap going, you've got enough raw elite skill to work around in terms of the long speed and the tiny what we've seen so far. I'd be optimistic.
Okay. Well, I owe you one for that one. That was good. That was nice on you right there. I appreciate that.
You got it.
Gentlemen's draft here we're having, folks.
Yeah. Okay, 4 picks left. Let's take as much time with these as well, which is really going to be no time. Raekwon McMillan, still on the board. I need a second inside linebacker. Welcome to the defense. You're working with Juwan Bentley. Both of you are going to be lifted on 3rd down. And then I'll take Kevin Harris. It's an all-rookie backfield, aside from James White, the old head. And he's a banger, led the SEC in rushing in 2020 with South Carolina. Again, that is the entire SEC, including Alabama and Georgia. Running back U. And back surgery kind of derailed them last season, but I think we're counting on a bounce back.
All right. That puts me up on the board, my man. This one's going to come out of nowhere, but I'm digging deep into my UDFA well. Obviously, the Planet Udfa is a huge fan of the Foxborough Fitzies. This kid was a 5-star recruit, a very injury-riddled college career, but there's that Saban-Belichick connection that when it works, and it doesn't always, look in your way, Anthony Jennings, it can't be denied. How are you feeling about being on the Foxborough Fitzies, LeBrian Ray?
I like it. A little bit of upside there. Didn't do a whole lot last year, but again, the 5-star pedigree. You know what else? He got through rookie minicamp. Like, he's a little banged up right now. Not everyone. Ask Derek King how rookie minicamp goes sometimes.
Oh, I heard he was bad.
Certainly wasn't good.
Wasn't good. Good enough to actually not even be there for about a week.
That's a good young core on the edge there. I mean, Ray is not, your 250-pound outside linebacker like a Josh Uche or Ronnie Perkins, but he can play kind of your 5 technique, head up on the offensive tackle, bounce a little bit further, set on the edge there. So that's a good young trio.
All right. And I'll take one more linebacker. Like I said, a huge fan and a sucker for all the comeback stories. Harvey Langi, welcome to the Foxborough Fitzies.
Good. Core special teamer. I don't have a core special teamer. I don't have a special teamer, period. I still have Quinn Nordine staring at me, and I'm looking back at him going, you might not get picked at all, because we might just go full Kevin Kelly. We're going for 2 every time. We're not punting. We're not kicking field goals, because you brought up Anthony Jennings. And look, he has been, as I was texting with Jim McBride of the Boston Globe earlier today, international man of mystery. Like, if you needed to send Anthony Jennings a postcard, it might be the lower conditioning field at One Patriot Place, because that's the only place that we see him. He's just down there all the time.
That's his proverbial milk carton, if you will.
Yeah. But when we did see him in 2020, they had him, again, a very desperate season overall. He played a little inside linebacker. He played a little bit on the edge. So I get to kind of double dip in my depth there, where really Matt Juna is my only traditional outside linebacker.
Right.
Future-wise is going to man one edge, but you've got a third inside guy who can also play the edge. Anthony Jennings is my second pick there, or my penultimate pick. The last one, I mean, got a 6 offensive linemen, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 3 running backs. Should probably go defense again, or kicker / punter. Yeah, give me Jake Bailey. I mean, that dude at least is going to give kickoffs. He can get in there on a kick. Like the other guys thinking of, you mentioned 5-star recruit Byron Cowart, 5th round pick, 2019. He's hung around. He's not going to play on the nose. Little 3 technique, maybe out to the 5, like just bounce. He's fine. He's
fine.
Okay. Yeah,
he's fine.
But Jake Bailey there has all pro ceiling, as we've seen. So my last pick, Jake Bailey.
There's still a chance, as good as Jake Bailey was in 2020, that because he had a little bit of a down year, and he was still one of the better punters in the league last year, he just didn't live up to the standards that he established as he took over for in 2019 and 2020 when he was an all-pro, making $4 million when they grab a punter, again, an undrafted free agent. But when Bill Belichick sees the opportunity to get 85% of the production out of somebody else that somebody else produces, and he only has to pay 15 to 20% of the money he would have owed the more expensive veteran, there's a chance, ladies and gentle friends, Jake Julian, come on down. Why not? Why not? We're gonna have to punt at some point. I do realize we will not be Buffalo playing the Patriots 2 out of the last 3 times. We're going to have to punt the ball at some point. So I think this kid has an outside chance to push Jake Bailey. I could see the same way that I was risky with my first pick in Damian Harris, who could potentially be a trade candidate if the young kids produce. I still say they ride him pretty hard this year and he gets double-digit touchdowns. If Jake Julian can legitimately, do more than Iron Leg was doing last year when Nordine started to give people like, ooh, he's made 9 practice kicks in a row. Like, come on, he's no Nick Folk. It's good to know they may have a backup there, because Folk is obviously closer to AARP than he is NCAA. So I'll go Jake Julian with my final pick, I believe. I got to spruce up. My offense needs just a little more dynamics, and he was available at the tail end. No one has made much mention of him, but he's got a shot to make the team, and he sure as hell does on the Foxborough Fitzies as well. Ty Montgomery, you are Mr. Irrelevant in today's Pat's Interference double Pat's draft.
I love it. Yeah, I think one quick note on Ty Montgomery. He hasn't topped 300 offensive yards since 2018, but he has become a player that tends to stick in Foxborough, and it's a guy who covers kicks and punts and does it really well. Brandon King's gone. Brandon Bolden's gone. Yep. That's a role I think he could carve out and gives you emergency break class in case of emergency depth there at running back and wide receiver. This is fun, man.
This is great. Desperation can be a hell of a drug. And I know a lot of the guys that I picked at the tail end of the kickball draft understand that as well. But I think both of our teams have some interesting strengths. There were some sneaky good picks, a couple, like I said, desperation grabs, but that's what's going to happen when you're going intra-squad like this.
Yeah, and it's a lesson for us and also the folks at home. You have an actual draft. You're sitting there at the end of April. All the teams have done the research. Panic picks still happen. They happen just here when we took 10 to 15 minutes of prep. Like it's obviously a false equivalence there between the real NFL draft and this draft, but it's just the idea unexpected things happen. Nick Folk going in the top 8 picks had me off kilter. And so it's, how do you bounce back? How do you capitalize on what you think is an opportunity, or do you stick with your board, or you jump away from it?
Everyone who plays fantasy football knows you always go into 1 or 2 drafts, whether it's auction style, snake, etc., with that guy you got to have. You're going to overpay. You're going to overdraft at least 2, if not 4 rounds early. A lot of times it used to be whenever there was a Pats fan in your league, you took Gronk far too soon, or you were the guy that began the run on quarterbacks because you had to have Brady. Nick Folk was my gotta have him guy. I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if he was on the Calipats.
Ooh, now see, you give me credit for Pat's interference, and I just overlook Calipats for the team. You know what? You might have another pick here, and I'm not going to go back and make a big stink about this because this is an extra pick and at the end of a fake draft where these teams are never going to line up and play. Mm-hmm. I have 27. The goal is to get to 28. I don't think we need to get to that round number just for the sake of what we said at the beginning. But if you want to take an extra player here, you can if you want, because what we're going to do is post these teams on Twitter and blow a poll for everyone who listens to the pod, or otherwise can just look at that tweet and decide whose team they like better. And so I have 27 players. Do you have a couple in mind that you're going to bat around and buy me some time here as I count up, make sure I didn't royally screw this up? If you're a 26, it's not a huge error because you should have ended with the last pick.
Yep.
And having had the first one in a snake format.
I mean, it would probably be between Sam Roberts, Will Sherman, and Sean Wade. So something in that, like, cornerback depth, Sean Wade could emerge. They got a lot of slot guys. Will Sherman, he may not even make the team, but they do need tackle depth. And Sam Roberts, hell of a defensive edge at the D2 level. And even though I took Ronnie Perkins and Josh Uche is also auditioning for that spot opposite Matt Judon, maybe Sam Roberts becomes like the sneaky camp guy. Who knows?
Good news. You have one extra player. I
do. I have an extra.
It sounds like I made a year 3 leap in high school and then plateaued the way I've been able to count as you've just been talking, and that's been able to distract me. So that's fine. The guest gets
take Wade Roberts. Take between one of them. You want another corner? You want another defensive lineman? Go for it.
I'll take Byron Cowher, or we could waive someone. You know, this is welcome to cut down day.
All right, so you go Byron Cowher.
Yeah, I'll take Byron Cowher, and I will double check this again just for the people who are watching on YouTube. You know, I can't read my own writing, Fitzy, you cannot. This is most
that looks like exactly the type of something I expect Bill Belichick to bring out to the sidelines as opposed to smashing tablets. Calipats and the Foxborough Fitzys, game and good to go. Oh man, I wish I could see these two guys play. Like, this would be fun if you and I actually get to do this, because they have that in-stadium intra-squad scrimmage they do every August. Last year, I actually got to be the in-stadium announcer for it, which was really fun. That was probably the cleanest broadcast I ever had in my entire life. I had Burge over my shoulder, like,
that somehow sounds very fitting.
Ultimately familiar, but I got a nice job and an attaboy and a fist bump at the end of it. So
as you should.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great time. It was the first time the fans were back too, and I'm just glad the preseason existed, if for no other reason than to bring the fans back in full force. And also, just like, one of the things I'm always going to be here for as the biggest Tom Brady fan, New England Patriots edition. I hate having to share him with our mutant cousins down in Tampa, and that's part of his legacy now. Never should have left. Should have gotten the Drew Brees fairly well victory lap contract. But that being said, I'm just glad fans got to give a little love to Cam Newton, because on the list of underrated, overlooked, or unnecessarily criticized Patriots, no one says he was a good thrower of the football. No one says he's really a great quarterback, Andrew. But like, what that guy did, being willing to come in, and I know it was his only offer still, but like, take all the pressure, be the quarterback in the pandemic, and be the guy that followed the GOAT, and then, you know, still give them like a competitive whiff of the playoffs on that barren supply chain grocery store shelf that was the Patriots 2020 roster. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's fair for Cam Newton. Like all the crap, all the pressure, little time, and did what he could. And it wasn't enough. I mean, that roster was not enough, and that was something
it was not
conveyed to everyone else. Was we will never be in this position again, because it was a 7-9 team that without 2 50-yard game-winning field goals as time expires over the Jets and over the Cardinals. Yes, your boy Nick Folk. They're 5-11. And you know what?
Yeah.
It could have swung the other way, of course. Cam Newton finished his run in Buffalo in week 6, but here we are talking about the worst season in Patriots history. But in reality, we have the best fake scrimmage ahead of us that maybe we can play out in Madden sometime. But until then, 4 downs. We're going to wrap this up. 4 non sequiturs, non-football stuff for you. Separate from that, we'll start more Patriot oriented. You have given Bill Belichick some truth serum. You get 2 questions in 5 minutes to ask him. Anything you want to know. You have some obvious candidates. What happened to Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl? What happened with Tom Brady at the end? But you get to ask him any 2 questions you want. What are those questions?
I think I already know what happened with Malcolm Butler, and that doesn't bother me to the degree it does a lot of Patriots fans, because there were so many flaws in the Patriots game plan in the first place that I don't need to know or get the definitive answer to that. Number 1 would be, why did you think you needed to move on from Brady at the time that you did? Or why didn't you give Brady, who you showed a lot of tough love to, and early on you realized, as Belichick does treat everyone differently and isn't the same incorrigible blank hole to everyone else that most people on the outside of Patriots Nation think he is, he obviously figured out early on in his career, hey, by being a jackass to this guy and by constantly, even though he would always say no other quarterback he would rather have than Tom Brady, by busting his chops and never giving him as much credit as we think he probably should have, that sort of riled up the pick 199 syndrome in Tom Brady and always motivated him to do better until he won Super Bowl 51. Things changed. Insert Guerrero. And why, Bill? Why didn't you think that he was worth? Why don't you think that he was worth that final Drew Brees contract that the rest of us would have liked to have seen? Because he never should have played in another uniform. And the other question I have is, how much do you think you like, even though he famously told Robert Kraft that he didn't get that much and he was called a schmuck for it with Spygate, why did you feel like you needed to keep doing it, even though you were told time and again not to do it? Because not only did you make life more difficult for yourself, but everyone was okay with all of us being Pats fans, Andrew, until Spygate. And from that point on, during the perfect season, well, you know what? No, why didn't you try to kick the field? Why did you go for it on 4th and 13 in Super Bowl 42? That's the question. Why did you have Brady throw that bomb to Jabbar Gaffney? Why didn't you try the field goal?
That's a weird, there shouldn't be any Super Bowl deep cuts, but to be honest, until you had mentioned that, I completely forgot about that.
I hate that thing. I always wonder, was 4th and 13 from the 34. So it would have been, or the 32. I think it would have been a 47 or 49 yarder for Gostkowski. I know he was no Adam Vinatieri at the time, especially, but with all the pressure they were getting with the NASCAR formation on Brady and the borderline biblical beating he had taken to that point, take a little pressure off him and give the kid a chance to bang one through and put points on the board, which were at a premium in the ultimate game.
All right, let's bring everybody up. That's clearly a take you have solidified and sat for a while. Give me a take, Patriots or non-Patriots, that you have not really fully formed yet. You felt this, you're not ready to unveil it, you're kind of workshopping it, some sort of take you put out there on Twitter, and it would get some blowback now, but you want to be entrenched before that kind of comes your way.
The Patriots offense will be much better than everyone is prepared for in 2022.
See, that came out of your mouth so quickly and so easily.
I'm so in for it. I am Steve Buscemi in Billy Madison with, laying back on the sofa, getting the call from Billy Madison, apologizing for the way that he talked to him and treated him. He's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. And then he turns to the wall and scratches off Billy Madison's name as if these are people he needs to get revenge for. Well, I'm going the opposite way. I am currently forming my list of everyone who is saying that the Judge, Patricia, Belichick, Kaylee, whomever, offensive think tank and sideline scoring football patrol is going to be a complete disaster. Okay, Orlovsky, fine, Cowherd. Everyone else that says Belichick has lost it, that the Patriots won't be able to score, that they're going to be a mess. There's going to be no coordination or cohesion to this offense.
I'm going to be on that list
going to regress
at some point. So below those guys, but I make sure my name's on there.
We can't get along for everything, Andrew.
Yeah. All right. I mentioned at the beginning, you've done TV, radio, a bunch of different things. What's more satisfying for you in terms of those two mediums, TV, radio, and why?
TV for sure. And I enjoy radio. I went to film school. I was a film and television production major, but it was a teacher in an audio class that I had to take who stopped me at one point and said, "Hey, had you ever considered radio? You have a nice voice. I think whatever it is you may want to ultimately talk about, radio is something you should consider." And I found my way in and out of it a number of times. I worked at K-Rock in New York, Howard Stern's old station. I worked for ESPN Radio, WAF, WEEI. I love it. I really love a chance to talk to people, but and two-way sports talk conversation is, something it's white noise. I still fall asleep to it at night sometimes. But TV in the field is my favorite. My favorite show I ever worked on was called Tailgate Fan for CBS Sports Network. And with a crew of two, me and my brother, we invaded college towns across the country and we spent the entire weekend partying with them. So you could watch an episode and you would know. I know it was terrible. I know the sacrifice was the least we could do. I know on the shoestring budget that we had and what I probably did to my liver. And my a
lot of Devin McCourty's throwing those back, or Jacoby Myers, buddy. Going down.
But you can watch an episode and you would know, like, this is what I need to eat at Clemson. These are the people I need to party with. These are the chants, the cheers, the traditions. It was a freaking blast because as a sports fan, that's what when I can sort of like blur that line and be like, is this guy a professional? Is this guy still a fan, or is he a combination they're in? That's the gray area I love to live most.
Yeah, that's great. All right, last one. At some point along the road, you adopted Fitzy. Your name is Nick Stevens. Where did Fitzy come from?
When I was early on in my 20s, post-grad in New York City, I was doing some improv comedy, took classes at Upright Citizens Brigade, did a little stand-up, wasn't very comfortable with it. And because I had done some sketch comedy, was a big Saturday Night Live fan. At the time, the Boston sports scene was starting to turn. There was early turn of the century. Brady was there. You had Manny. It was pre-Poppy, et cetera. Paul Pierce was involved. And so I came up with this idea, like, what if I start doing stand-up on stage as America is falling in love with the wicked Pissa accent? Damon and Affleck are national entertainment darlings. What if I do stand-up, but everywhere I go, I'm just that guy. I'm that masshole. I'm the guy who sits behind you hammered in right field at a Red Sox game. And most of the things he says are wildly inappropriate, super caustic. But every now and again, you're like, oh, I had never really thought of that. That's actually pretty sharp. Good for you, guy. Oh, man, you smell. So Fitz, it had to be Sully, Murph, or Fitzy. Right. Because, you can't yell any of those names in a Boston bar without hearing, what do you want? Yeah, right here. So, that's what I picked. And I first used to do movie reviews before I got into sports analysis.
All right. So you should have really an unspoken rivalry with the guy who is now using that 20 years later in the Sam Adams commercial. Like your cousin from Boston, way too wordy anyway. Like F off, cuz, right. Like Fitzy's been at this 2 decades now.
I know. If I'm going to borrow his jingle, you owe it to Fitzy. Yeah, I know exactly. Like, hey, Sam, how about some royalties? And by the way, if you want to pay those royalties one time or in perpetuity, some deliveries of Wicked Easy, Boston Lager Original, fine by me. Fine by me.
Cool. All right, I lied. We got 2 quick mailbag questions if you got a second.
Go. Let's do it. Oh, I'm always got time, man.
Okay. This is on Twitter from Pat's STH 1969. Nice. He wants to know what will have a bigger effect on the offense. Jonnu Smith doubling as a tight end and perhaps H-back role. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of H-back. Or Tyquan Thornton's long speed finally forcing defensive coordinators to commit to the deep part of the field.
I want it to be the latter, but it's probably going to be the former. Just because they're going to try so hard again. Like they tried way too hard. And I know a little something or other about tryhardism, but they tried way too hard to get Jonnu Smith involved in space on the sweeps and always trying to get him in motion and use his athleticism to their advantage. And it just kind of blew up on him for a multitude of reasons. I'd love to tell you that Tyquan Thornton is just going to explode, stretch the field, and give defensive coordinators pause, Andrew, to say like, hey, maybe we have to start playing 2 safeties deep or backing up on the Patriots as well. Nelson Aguilar may do more of that as well because he's going to need a role and he's still pretty damn fast. So Probably too early to say Tyquan Thornton will do it. I'm just going to default to Jonnu Smith because there's no third option.
Yeah, and I think Nelson Aguilar is ahead of Tyquan Thornton as much as people don't want to hear that in that respect. Like this is a guy, and I've said this ad nauseum. I've begun this stat ad nauseum. He had the worst luck on deep balls last year in terms of Mac Jones throwing deep. He saw the lowest rate of catchable balls from Mac Jones of any receiver on passes that went 20 yards downfield. That's Nelson Aguilar's wheelhouse. If he's not getting passes that are within his catch radius, he's that far downfield. Like there's no use for him really in this offense. So I think he'll naturally progress like Jonnu Smith, who I think for this question goes, is probably my answer. Do you see a huge effect in either instance if Nelson Aguilar or Tyquan Thornton, goes downfield and stretches the field? No, I don't think so. But I think just having a second reliable tight end is going to have a larger ripple effect than either one of those wide receivers.
He won't be Gesicki, and there'll be no comparisons to Ertz, but he'll be better than Njoku this season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that's who he was before he got here.
Exactly.
Last one, Jake from Twitter says, I've heard Belichick say in interviews, quote, players win football games, coaches lose them. If that has always been his modus operandi, should we have more or less faith in this jumbled coaching staff? It's time to put Jake on your list, I think, as well, with all the national pundits. It seems like it could go both ways so long as the players execute. I'll just say this. I think Belichick believes that down to his core because players are on the field playing the game. The name of what they do is play. They are players. But it's also his way of absorbing all of the blame when things go wrong publicly and giving all the credit to players when things go right, which is just pure 101 for them. So he believes it, but when he says it publicly, it's nothing more than what you hear from him anyway. It's just the shortest version of, it's my fault when we lose, we have to get better. When we win, don't look at me, it's all to the players.
Which is good parenting, basically. If if your kids do something before they're of a certain age where they should take responsibility for their actions, it is your fault. And then if they do something awesome, like, oh, you must have coached him up, you taught him that. No, I want credit to go where credit is due, and that would go to my kid. As far as the Patriots this season, this sort of weird confluence of coaches that they're assembling on both sides of the ball, and coming off a season where they made an uncharacteristic amount of mistakes with false starts, multiple penalties, blocking assignments, obviously 3 blocked punts, et cetera, et cetera. I think those things are going to get cleaned up because you've got more experienced professional football minds in the room. And as far as what the Patriots have for talent, Callahan, look, the Patriots, there are a lot of sneaky, great deep dive stats as to why the Patriots were so good for so long. Obviously, the ultimate one, who is not the Patriot way himself, but Tom Brady, he was Flex Seal. He fixed everything. He was the greatest at all time in his position. You'll never see another like him on our team or any of the other 31 teams, or even beyond when they expand in the NFL. But the Patriots didn't turn the ball over. They didn't get penalties. And above all, they always had a strong middle class. And what I see on this roster right now, with what they spent last year, who they've taken the last couple of years, and some of these value adds, some of these Wendy's $5, like 5 nuggets, chicken sandwich, Frosty, and a small fry kind of free agent signings and UDFAs that they've picked up, they're going to be a very strong middle class. They're going to have like depth, redundancy, and adequate strength at a lot of spots. So while other teams may have great receivers and like a dynamite pass rush, they may not have a great secondary. They might not have good linebackers. There could be holes on their offensive line. The Patriots should be pretty smooth, even, and consistent, I think, along all planes of the roster. And that's what's going to keep them in games. That's why I think they're going to be a 9-8 or 10-7 team that's a tough out each and every week, doesn't get to the promised land, but gives you a reason not to miss all the games.
Look, it's peak off season because we're doing a draft for an imaginary scrimmage here in early June, but you, my friend, are in midseason form. Well said. I think that's a sentiment that will expand and extend well into training camp of the preseason until, again, we get that 100-degree hard reality of what it's going to be like in Miami in week 1. But, people want to lament about the schedule or things like that. Even if the Dolphins win, their next stretch includes Buffalo. They go play Baltimore, and I want to say they play the Steelers and maybe even a better team. So look, it's going to be a hard season. It's going to be a long one. That goes for everyone, particularly AFC East, and I'm ready to get started, but not after we have this schedule. So I'll tweet this out, or schedule these rosters. So I'll tweet this out. Please vote on Twitter. Please rate, review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you can. This has been a lot of fun to start this podcast. We're going to have Fitzy back. Any last thoughts on our draft before we get you out of here?
No, man, it was an absolute blast. What a great way to go about a podcast, because there's only so many ways you can skin the proverbial cat or talk football, especially at this time of year as well. And also, you were a sweetheart to me and giving me some offensive, some Trey Nixon love. So next double dry hop, double IPA is on me. All right. Best of luck with the pod.
I'm getting a 2023 third round pick for that kindness this year. This is like the draft they did with the Panthers. Okay. So we're going to have you back in 12 months. We'll do this again, but I'm going to count correctly by then. And I will have 29 players here, 27.
And yours is the name that I'm happiest to have on that wall. And I can't wait to victory lap around you.
Excellent. Appreciate it, Fitzy.
All right, buddy. Thanks.